I want to welcome you back to Black Site Tonight. We're going to talk about Stephen A. Smith possibly being fired by ESPN in the next round of layoffs. First, I would like for you to subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, hit that notification button, but also comment on this video. Stephen A. Smith, on his independently owned podcast, gave the truth of what was happening over at ESPN. And he basically saying it's a possibility that he'll be fired in the next round of layoffs. They are talking over there at Disney and ESPN. And when he sees his contemporaries like Susie Colbert, who've been there for 27 years, Steve Wojnarowski, who was there for 25, Max Kellerman, who was there about 15, when he sees the quality of talent that is being laid off or fired over at ESPN, he could see the signs on the wall. And that's what Stephen A. Smith was talking about on his podcast. He was being truthful with everybody, basically saying that he needs to prepare himself for when he's fired. And this is why he has his own independent podcast. And he expressed and explained what happened with Pat McAfee. He said Pat McAfee owns his own product. He sold it to ESPN and he still owns his own product. And he says that he wants to do the same thing. He wants to be an independently owned podcast product. And that's what I think someone like a Jalen Rose or Keyshawn Johnson may do in the future. But nobody's safe over at ESPN. When you have a company that is losing revenue like ESPN, once with 100 million subscribers, are now down to 70 million because so many people are cutting the cord. And plus, ESPN has gone the wrong way. Instead of going right, they went left. They were perfect when they were going down the middle and they only talked about sports. But that has hurt the bottom line on ESPN. And also, the biggest problem ESPN has, you have so many independent podcasters out on YouTube that people can watch. And they don't have to pay the subscription fee at ESPN. And the only reason why Stephen A. Smith is there is because he is the biggest money maker at ESPN. He's the guy that works on ESPN 1, 2, 3, Deporte, ESPN. That's something Charles Barkley was making a joke about. But you see that Stephen A. Smith works overtime for the money that he's receiving because he's one of the biggest personalities on that channel. And he's basically keeping that channel up. I'll tell you the two biggest people they have on that channel, Stephen A. Smith and College Football Game Day. Those are the two that I believe that's saving ESPN. ESPN has become a bankrupt company when it comes to personalities. This was a channel built on some of the best personalities in sports history. Chris Berman, Dan Patrick, Susie Colbert, Stuart Scott, Keith Olbermann. These were personalities. When you came to watch sports, you watched sports, but you also had a great time when it comes to laughing. You know, it was a time when you could keep ESPN on all day. But that ended, not just because of the internet, but of the people they hired at ESPN. When they decided to go left, when they decided to go woke, when they decided to put news into sports and combine them both. And that was the downfall of the ESPN empire. I would not be surprised if they tried to sell ESPN off, since Bob Iger got back in control of Disney. And you know the problems Disney had in Florida with Ron DeSantis. And now It has trickled down to Disney. He wanted the 7,000 layoffs. He wanted some big salaries cut over at ESPN. And one of the biggest salaries is Stephen A. Smith. And he could hear the chirping in the background. You know, this is why you have the agents you have. This is why you have the connections that Stephen A. Smith has. And his agent and the people who surround Stephen A. Smith is telling him, you must be prepared for the next step in your career. Because they're basically saying they're going to come calling. They're going to come knocking at your door. And you're going to get cut, just like so many other personalities. Pat McAfee is going to step in. He's going to give them pretty good ratings. Stephen A. Smith, they're talking about possibly bringing over Shannon Sharp. That's going to cost them a pretty penny right there. That would bring their ratings back up on ESPN First Take. But Stephen A. Smith is smart. He knows what he has to do next. He knows this. If they cut him from ESPN, I'll bet you this. FS1 is going to get rid of Skip Bayless. I believe they're going to be reunited in the podcast. In the future, I believe Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless will be reunited in a podcast similar, possibly owned by Stephen A. Smith. You got to look to the future. You got to look forward to the new technology. You got to do it. And he possibly could make more money by himself than he's making at ESPN. ESPN, because of the decisions that they made. And I'm telling you, if you don't think bad decisions hurt a company, just look at Blockbuster. Just look at your major retail box stores that used to be around. Sears, J.C. Penney's. When you make a huge mistake and you go left, that could destroy your product. And I believe that's what ESPN has done. And I believe it may be something good that happens if he is fired or laid off. Because Stephen A. Smith has a name that rings around the world. He's just being prepared, just like everybody else should be prepared in life, that your job could be cut any day, any time, at any minute. I want to thank you for listening to Black Site This Quick Take. I hope you subscribe to this channel, smash that like button, but also share this video.